Let's Talk with Meo. Guys, welcome back to a new season of Let's Talk with Meo, the Youth Messenger. Guys, I know I took a break. I had a lot going on, but I am back. I am stronger, and we're going to continue to talk about the things that is happening in the city. So today I have the honor of interviewing the Senator, Miss DeAndrea Salvador. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so nice to meet you. I've heard wonderful things.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Senator DeAndrea Salvador. Born and raised from Charlotte, first-term senator. So I assumed office in January. A little bit about me: before being a senator, I founded a nonprofit organization, and I currently work for a startup that I also co-founded. So excited to be here and excited to answer your questions.
And thank you for coming on. So let's jump into the questions. So question one, how do you become a senator or House representation?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different routes to end up in the Senate or in the House. So the number one thing is just like the constitutional statutes of becoming a senator or a House rep, which essentially for the House of Representatives, I believe is 21 years of age, and then for the Senate, you have to be 25 years of age by the time you assume office. So that's kind of the first criteria. The second is you have to live in the area that you represent for at least a year prior to it. Those are kind of like the base things that have to be checked in order to assume that office. Now for me, it really was just kind of, I saw an opportunity to serve in a new way, and I decided pretty quickly to just dive right in and, just start that journey.
Amazing. So what made you want to become a senator?
Yeah, so through my nonprofit work, which I'm sure you understand
Yes,
from working with a lot of nonprofits, you start to see more and more that as you're working on particular issues, that they overlap with policy. And this became really evident with my nonprofit with energy. So there would be programs we wanted to do that we could do in South Carolina, so a short 15, 20-minute drive away, that we could not do here in Charlotte, and I would get really frustrated, and I would just kind of ask that question of why is it this way? And the reason was policy, just poorly written policy that was keeping us from doing programs that could lower people's energy costs here, that because they had better policy in South Carolina or even Texas, they could get those programs there. And so it really kind of picked up on wanting to do more with advocacy and also starting to see more and more the impact that policy has on our day-to-day lives.
Amazing. So what inspires you?
Who inspires me?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, definitely my mom and my grandma. I mean, like my close family is definitely my source of inspiration, my children. Really, I get a lot of my inspiration from family. There are some kind of, people who have been in very trailblazers in different positions that inspire me as well. So Ursula Burns, she, was a woman in STEM, and she was the former CEO of Xerox. And so one of the first Black women to serve in that position. So, I looked at a lot of those trailblazers in all different parts of our, society, and really appreciate them for kind of breaking through those previous glass ceilings and opening up the way for more people to come through.
Yes, ma'am. Amazing. So how long have you been a senator?
Yeah, so it's been pretty short. It's only been 3 months. Well, what is it, April? Okay, so
Yes,
three and a half months. So it's still very new. I'm doing a lot, but I'm learning a lot at the same time. But it's been incredibly fulfilling, as much as it's been a whirlwind to kind of jump in and try to make an impact as soon as I can.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So did you always want to be a senator?
No. No. Honestly, if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have probably been like, I'm not sure about that. I was interested in learning more about serving in office, so I wanted to make sure I was informed about it. So I did a class about running for office through an organization that's called Lead and See.
Oh.
And Lead and See does essentially free classes for people to just learn about all the different forms of local government, what they mean, how to run for them, how to build your team. And so I did that a long time ago just because through my nonprofit work, I said, okay, well, let me learn more, get myself more equipped. But Senate was never like a part of a plan. It's more of like throughout my life, if there's a way that I can jump in and do something, then I just try to do it. So that my nonprofit, for instance, and Senate felt like another form of that because, I look at my Senate district and it has where I went to high school. It has my grandma's house. It has my church. It has so much of the community that brought me up, and so I thought it could be a really unique way to work in partnership with them to make sure that our priorities and focus areas are getting addressed in an additional way.
Yes, ma'am. So what does your leadership do in the town?
Yeah. So, I'll be really candid. So in the North Carolina State Senate, there are 50 senators from across the state. Right now, 22 are Democrats and the rest are Republicans. So in both the House and the Senate, we're the minority party, which means that politically or through policy, there's a limited amount of what we can get done. Some of those bigger, larger, more aspirational things we don't see, but the thing that I can do from day one really is our constituent services. So when you become a senator, they assign you staff. And so I have a legislative assistant, and really his role is when somebody emails us and they say they need help, he tries to help them navigate that. And that can be from looking for a grant for their business or, just congratulating a teacher for winning an award. So that's kind of like where our most immediate impact is. We're still working on policy, we're still working on the budget. But I would say literally from January 1st when we got our emails, that was like the first initial thing that we started working on and doing.
Yes, ma'am. So what do you plan to do to help the city?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have done a number of different legislative initiatives. So, for me, I touched on healthcare is a big one. So I introduced what's called the North Carolina Momnibus with 2 other senators. And that looks at maternal health, and in particular Black maternal health, to help with covering Medicaid for pregnancies, to look into discrepancies for Black women and women of color when they're going into childbirth, so looking at some of those implicit biases. So that's one of the things. Other things that I've introduced are helping to remove barriers for local governments so that they can do their own ordinances to promote affordable housing. So sometimes what can happen is if there is a state statute that says that a city government cannot request, that a developer specifically says you have to have X amount of affordable housing in order to get this zoning permit. There's some limitations for how far that can go. This legislation would not mandate that cities have to do it, but it will essentially allow them to determine what is the best path for them to work forward on that. And then they can go in that process without having a legislative barrier. So those are a couple examples. We touched on energy, climate. Some of my colleagues have done some criminal justice reform that I co-sponsored. So really, in the last 3 months, I've either co-sponsored or primary sponsored about 97 bills. So throughout all of that, it touches, just a lot of different topics that kind of impact our day-to-day lives. And then outside of that, transportation is something that has been a big concern for my community, my district. So like I organized the city, the county, our Department of Transportation to have like a conversation about what can we be doing collaboratively to move things forward. So I kind of also see our office as being a little bit of a convener, like how can we use our resources to bring people together to brainstorm solutions to.
Amazing. So just give us a little rundown of what a typical day in your life look like.
Yeah, and that's funny because we're actually going to record a video hopefully in the next few weeks or month. But every day is absolutely different. So, I'm normally in Raleigh from Monday to Thursday. That can sometimes be a little bit shorter. For instance, this week I'm going up Tuesday morning, but the bulk of my week while we're in session is in Raleigh. So every odd number year like this one is a long session, so it goes from like January to July, or it can go a little longer. And then the even number year is the short session. So the short session is only about 3 months. And so for me, I will normally take the train up. Sometimes I'll drive, but I like the train because I can work. I got Wi-Fi. It's a nice way to spend a few hours. So I'll take the train up. We'll have committee meetings. So you're assigned to a certain number of committees. When those committees have bills, then you come in and kind of listen to that bill sponsor. You vote in favor or not in favor of those bills. You meet with a lot of different stakeholder groups, so constituents, there'll be lobbying days. There was a group of college students that met with me about, they wanted to see plastics banned, or somebody else might meet about a healthcare issue they want you to consider. And then we generally, in the evening or in the afternoon, have the actual floor session on the Senate. So that's where we're all coming together in the chamber and officially voting on a bill such that it would go over to the House. So yeah, it's kind of all over, every day is different, but those are kind of the core pillars of the day.
So when you first became senator, what surprised you the most about your job?
Right, yeah, I mean, how much you need to get informed about. So, I mean, there have been some issues that, had I not been in this role, I'm not sure they would have crossed my path. And so really making sure to carve out time to be able to read and learn and get more informed about things so that I can be a better public servant has been one really surprising thing. I will say that it's interesting because despite, again, being in the minority party, I think there's a lot of things we can do and a lot of work we can go and try to get accomplished. So there have been times where it's just me trying to share ideas or give ideas out, even if it doesn't have my name on it, because I want to see things go through.
Yes,
So those have been a couple of surprising things, but honestly, with 3 months in, I'm still very much learning. Every day is a learning experience to try to get better.
And what is the hardest part about your job?
Yeah, so I mean, I have 2 small kids, so being away from my family is tough. It's definitely, it's a sacrifice, and you don't make a lot of money being a senator, so let me point out, I do have a full-time job on top of this because you make about $13,000 a year. And so, yeah, they give you a little bit for travel to get up there, but yeah, your core salary is $13,000 a year, which actually makes it really tough for younger people to run, or it creates a lot of barriers, of course, but being away from my family and knowing that we're doing that sacrifice, they're super understanding, extremely supportive. I'm so fortunate to have them, but if my kids call me and they are talking about something that happened in their day, I certainly, feel sad about not being there physically for them when those things are going on.
Yes, ma'am. So how do you juggle being a mom and also a senator at the same time?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a constant juggle. So when I am up in Raleigh, we try to get creative. So one of the other senators, who's also a mom, told me about this app, House Party. So we literally will virtually play Uno and do karaoke on their phone, and I'm doing it. So it kind of gives us something fun we can do while we're away. I try to be present when I'm at home with my kids. So try to have a clear cutoff of when I'm doing Senate work or my day job work. So that way when I'm with them, I'm just all in to play whatever game they want or, do whatever, watch the movie with them, whatever they want to do. But I mean, it's definitely a juggle to make sure that I'm doing both in a way that's effective and not making sure that they feel fulfilled. But they, part of it too is educating them about why I think this is important. So, I talk to them about some of the bills we voted on, or I talk to them about something I learned so that they understand, okay, mommy's doing this, but here's some of the reasons why she's doing it. It's not, she's just going away for, no purpose. So I think that helps a little bit too.
Yes, ma'am. So now that we learned things about being a senator, jump into some other questions for some topics. With a lot of the homicides that's been happening in Charlotte, how does it make you feel when you look on the news or you're on social media scrolling and you see that these young men or young daughters are getting shot every day?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking and is unacceptable. And so despite being a new elected official, I think that immediately from day one, I feel some type of accountability to try to figure out what we can do. And I'll say, furthermore, it's really tough being in the minority party of a chamber where you might put forth some ideas, or we have one senator, Senator Mustafa Muhammad. He is really incredible in terms of criminal justice reform, and he has a lot of experience in this area, and I hope to see his bills move forward, like the Equity and Justice Act. However, we also know that there are limitations to some of the things we want to get done. So for me, it's kind of a matter of figuring out how I can move the needle now, but also make sure we're moving towards those larger goalposts. I think that I've certainly been trying to reach out to some of the other electeds to build my knowledge about what is already going on. So I'll try to reach out to some of the judges or try to reach out to my city council people. But the frustrating part is that I don't have a absolute solution yet, but that's something that I try to make myself accessible, because I know that I don't have to know it all, because I feel like our community has solutions and thoughts about what can be done too. And I like to just make sure people know that I'm open to hearing that and figuring out how can I have ownership over what is within my wheelhouse to do, and then how can I bring people together to do more, because I mean, it is absolutely not acceptable, and we can't ignore it. We have to address it head on in whatever or any of our roles.
Yes, ma'am. So what programs are you guys trying to provide for the youth to keep them from ripping and running the streets and killing one another, to be able to go to a center like a rec center to have some fun and learn prices ranges, so they're able to do things instead of going out here, selling drugs, getting in trouble, having babies at young ages? What are you guys doing to be able to help the youth?
Right. So I will say that sometimes I'll talk to the local churches and see how I can support. My home church is doing a program where they are going to have essentially free center. It's in Pineville area, so that youth can come in and get that kind of additional engagement. I will say that we're trying to put in more funding. So when you look at the something that we like to say a lot is our budget represents our priorities.
Yes.
And so making sure that we're putting in funding for our educational systems, but not just necessarily to college, but also to find vocational programs, so that if you are previously incarcerated, that you can come and be immediately connected to a job. One of my cousins, I'm trying to assist him with finding something after being released just a couple months ago in a pandemic, and it's an incredibly tough situation. Some of the other things that we're working to do is like banning the box for when somebody is applying for a job, so that they can't be discriminated against for some of those things. So I think it's a mix of, one of our biggest jobs in the Senate is the budget. So there's about anywhere from a $20 billion to $27 billion budget. And we have to make sure that our budget priorities are going back to the people, whether that be programs, whether that be directly supporting nonprofits, which is something that can be done in the budget, or also looking into, are there additional things we can be doing? So I will say that we have just now kicked off that budget process, but I'm quickly trying to learn, how can we make sure that every dollar is going as far as possible to impact all of our communities. I will say something additional for the Senate is that we're there to vote in representation of our community, but your vote impacts the entire state. So there's sometimes, it's very difficult, because with the exception of some small projects, you're generally voting on a program that affects all schools, not Charlotte schools or Mecklenburg schools. And so I'm trying to identify ways that we can make sure we're addressing the unique challenges of Charlotte, even though our vote is impacting everyone. So it's kind of a little bit of a balancing act to figure out how I can make the best impact there. We can do some local bills, and so one of the local bills that Senator Natasha Marcus and myself introduced was essentially giving our citizen review board subpoena power. So those are some examples of things within the county that we can do. But in terms of funding, it's a little bit more difficult to directly fund a Mecklenburg County only program. But let's say if there was a program across the state for, a program that can be apprenticeship or something like that, that's a little bit more of how we generally, at least from what I'm seeing so far, have to approach it.
Yes, ma'am. So what can youth like me, myself, I'm always out in the community helping others, hosting events to help stop the violence, to help stop bullying, to help stop a lot of things. How can we be able to get a lot of support from, senators like you and other city councilmen and women to be able to help us, so that way we know that we're doing the best we can, but you guys are standing behind us? How can y'all help us with that?
Right, and so I think exactly what you're doing right now, reaching out to your local elected official, is a great #1 step. Our delegation, so all of the members of the Mecklenburg County House and all the members of the Mecklenburg County Senate, we do have periodic listening sessions. So that is another way to get involved. I think our next upcoming listening session will be in May. So that's one way to kind of make sure that we are hearing directly from the people in our community what the priorities are, what the needs are, what you expect us to be doing. And so that is another way, you know, I try to hold office hours. And as long as I don't have a committee meeting, we do those twice a month. And so that's another way for folks to kind of join, be able to share their viewpoints so that I can be thinking about things that I can do legislatively to move it forward. And that's the big reason why I wanted to have those office hours, just so that people could get in touch with me and be able to share their thoughts about what can be done better that way too.
Amazing. So that's all the time we have today, guys. So hope you like this episode. And hope you stay tuned for the next episode. But Ms. Senator, tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you're on Facebook, facebook.com/DeAndrea Salvador, or Twitter is Senator Salvador. And feel free to also email me. So it's just deandrea.salvador@ncleg.gov. As far as my email, or if you go to ncleg.gov, you can also find who your House and Senate members are, as well as their emails, and you can also see like all the bills we've introduced, our votes and things of that sort. So I definitely encourage everybody to check out that website to get to know your representative or your senator better if you don't already. But thanks so much for having me today.
Yes, ma'am.
I really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming on, and I look forward to working with you
Absolutely.
in the future. Guys, I love you guys so much. You're unique, talented, and gifted. Don't let anybody turn you down. Don't let anybody try to ruin your day. You're amazing. If have nobody told you yet, I love you guys. And that is all from the Youth Messenger signing off.